is a moment in the Bible that feels deliberately unfinished, a passage so brief, so dense, that it has sparked centuries of debate, yet is rarely explained in full. However, before I get into this thought-provoking lesson, I want to welcome you back. I pray this new year, Yah, will bless you and your family, and He will cause His face to shine upon you. So, I want to discuss Genesis chapter 6. In just 4 verses, the scripture introduces the sons of God and the daughters of men, and also a group called the Nephilim. For many, these words immediately trigger theories about angels, humans, monsters, and forbidden unions. Entire mythologies have been built on these lines. But here's the problem. The Bible itself never focuses on those ideas. So why do we? What if Genesis 6 isn't revealing something sensational, but something structural? What if it's not about angels descending from heaven, but more about people drifting away from the Creator of heaven and earth? Before the great flood, before judgment, before the ark was ever built, Scripture records a quieter catastrophe. The collapse of distinction between those who walked with God and those who rejected Him. In Genesis, it mentions 2 brothers, Cain and Abel, 2 bloodlines, 2 ways of life, and one moment where the boundary disappears. We're going back to the text, not tradition, not speculation. We'll follow Genesis from Cain to Seth, from worship to violence, and from covenant to compromise. We'll examine what the phrase, sons of God, means in Scripture, how the word Nephilim became misunderstood, and why the Bible places this event immediately before global judgment, or the Great Flood. Genesis 6 is not a mystery meant to distract us. It is a warning meant to expose us. And once you see it, you won't read Genesis chapter 6 the same way again. Now let's begin. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 to 4. When men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive. They took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. The main claim people identify with this passage is the sons of God are angelic beings, typically interpreted as fallen angels, who took human women as wives. However, Scripture itself places boundaries on that assumption. Jesus states clearly, "In the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." Matthew 22:30. Angels are described as ministering spirits, not biological beings capable of reproduction. Hebrews 1:14. Nowhere does Scripture teach that angels marry, procreate, or create offspring. Then how else does the Bible use the phrase, sons of God? The phrase, sons of God, does not require an angelic identity. Adam himself is called the Son of God in Luke 3:38, and to be honest, Adam was the only man in the Bible that was not birthed by a woman. He was created by God's own hands, which made Adam his son and God his father. So let's establish that the phrase, Son of God, can describe humans who stand in a covenant relationship with God. The sons of God refers to godly human descendants of Seth. The daughters of men, however, refers to the ungodly descendants of Cain, and also, as I mentioned, covenant. Israel is called God's son. Exodus 4:22. Later believers are called sons of God through obedience and faith. Deuteronomy 14:1, Hosea 1:10. In this light, sons of God in Genesis 6 naturally fits the faithful descendants of Seth, while daughters of men refers broadly to humanity that has rejected God. represented by Cain's line. Genesis does not jump randomly into chapter 6. Before this moment, Scripture carefully establishes two human bloodlines. Genesis 4 traces the line of Cain, marked by exile, pride, and violence. Cain slaughtered his brother. He builds a city. His descendant Lamech boasts of hurting a man and glorifies vengeance. Genesis 5, by contrast, traces the line of Seth. This genealogy is quiet, repetitive, and reverent. Over and over it says, "And he died," emphasizing human mortality and dependence on God. Most importantly, Scripture notes, "At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord." Genesis 4:26. These are not random family trees. They are two spiritual trajectories, one towards self-rule, the other towards submission. Genesis 6 does not describe forbidden biology. It describes forbidden compromise. The godly line abandons discernment. They choose based on desire, not devotion. The language mirrors later warnings in Scripture. They took as their wives any they chose. This echoes God's repeated command not to intermarry with those who reject Him, not for ethnic reasons, but spiritual allegiance. Deuteronomy 7, verse 3-4. The danger is always the same. Faith dilution leads to moral collapse. The result of these unions is not supernatural offspring, but total moral collapse.
You both are simply beautiful.
Genesis 6:5 clarifies the issue explicitly. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The judgment that follows is directed at human evil, not angelic rebellion. The flood narrative never blames angels. It condemns mankind. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Notice what the text does not say. It does not say the Nephilim were the offspring of these unions. It simply states they existed during the same period. That distinction matters. The Hebrew word Nephilim comes from naphal, meaning to fall. The term likely means fallen ones, not giants or hybrids. They were described as mighty men, men of renown. In the ancient world, this language referred to warriors, rulers, and powerful elites, men who gained fame through strength, violence, and domination. When Scripture later mentions the Nephilim in Numbers 13:33, the context is fear, exaggeration, and psychological intimidation. The Israelite spies described themselves as grasshoppers by comparison, a subjective report, not a divine definition. Notably, God never confirms their assessment. Their fear leads to rebellion, not revelation. This shows how the word Nephilim became inflated over time, transformed from a descriptor of violent men into a symbol of terror. Genesis 6 does not portray the Nephilim as the cause of judgment. Instead, it emphasizes the spread of unchecked power and corruption. They were mighty men, men of renown. Renown in Scripture is morally neutral. It often signals fame without righteousness. Cain sought a name for himself, Genesis 4:17. Nimrod, later described as a mighty hunter, becomes associated with rebellion and empire building, Genesis 10 verses 8-10. The pattern is consistent. Human ambition without God produces domination, not justice. When the godly line of Seth compromised with the corrupt culture of Cain, the restraint that once limited violence disappeared. The result was a world ruled by strength, reputation, and self-glory. Like in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the end. This explains why Genesis 6:11 concludes, "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence." Violence, not hybrid beings, is the stated reason for judgment. The misunderstanding of the Nephilim arises when readers impose later mythological frameworks onto an ancient Hebrew text. Scripture does not sensationalize them. Modern imagination does. The Bible's concern is never their biology, but their impact. They represent what happens when spiritual identity is abandoned and power goes unchecked. Genesis 6 is therefore not a story about giants, angels, or forbidden creatures. It is a sober account of human collapse, where those called to walk with God instead chose desire, lust, strength, and status. The Nephilim symbolize the final stage of that collapse, a world where might defines right and renown replaces righteousness. Genesis 6 is not a tale of giants or angels gone astray. It is a warning about what happens when those called to walk with God abandon discernment and blend into a corrupt culture. The Nephilim symbolize a world where strength defines truth, fame replaces faith, and covenant identity is lost. This passage matters because it confronts every generation with the same question: will the sons of God remain faithful, or will they dissolve into the world around them? Avoiding this teaching does not protect believers, it weakens them. Genesis 6 reminds us that collapse does not begin with catastrophe. It begins with compromise.